Welcome. Technology, the next education workforce. I'm part of your cruise directorship. Brent Maddin, Executive Director of the Next Education Workforce at the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College at the Arizona State University. The one teacher, one classroom model, it looks like this: 25 kids in a box with an educator all day long. Turn to a person beside you in lightning quick 10-15 seconds. What are all the potential challenges of working in a one teacher, one classroom model? Just turn to a person near you.
Can I tell you the problem? Sure. It's really hard to put kids and all of their needs and put me in the person that owns all.
Yep. Let us count the ways. Maybe you said something like, oh, maybe it's kind of stymieing our student achievement, or maybe this is contributing to the fact that we've got an educator workforce that looks nothing like the kids with whom we're lucky enough to work. Maybe you're saying something like, whoa, that job feels really lonely, oddly, isolating. You're really overwhelmed. The job of teaching is incredibly inflexible in a one teacher, one classroom model. I hope you don't have a doctor's appointment. And if you do, I hope it's in June. 37% of parents, this is new data, 2022 PDK, are actually telling their own children, please do not go into teaching. Yeah, if you're freaking out right now, so am I. Because there's 3.5 million classrooms that have to be staffed on a daily basis. What if we shouldn't be wringing our hands about a teacher shortage problem, but instead asking ourselves, do we have a workforce design problem? I think the answer is yes, and we need to fix that. So we're working on this. This is something called the Next Education Workforce, and we're committed to bringing not one person in a box all day or until a bell rings with 25 kids, but instead a team of educators with distributed expertise wrapping around a common group of kids. This is about relationships. Instead of putting biology or second grade at the center, we put kids at the center. And we ask, who's the team of adults that we should be surrounding this group of learners to make sure that they're able to thrive? And it turns out that when we do that, it changes the way that you enter the profession. It changes the way that you specialize. It changes the way that you develop and advance. It's exciting. So imagine a hallway, third grade classrooms. There's 4 of them. Each one of these teachers has 25 kids. This looks like basically every school in America. If it doesn't, congratulations, you're doing something great. This is like the half a chili pepper version. So instead of just being in silos or boxes by themselves, maybe this group of 4 people are working together, sharing a common roster of 100 kids. Not blowing anyone's mind yet. What if we said that they each have distributed expertise, and that the person that really doesn't like teaching math isn't responsible for teaching my daughter math? This is happening, right? And that we could lean into our distributed expertise. And it could be that that African-American teacher on the end, who was an emergency credential teacher that answered the call of being an educator, isn't asked to be all things to all people at all times, but instead can grow in this job as a member of a team. But if that's like maybe 1 chili pepper, now we're like 2, 3 chili pepper versions. You might be asking, Brent, like, didn't you just blow up the budget? We've got a white paper on this. The answer is no. There are people in this room, if you're implementing one of these models, raise your hand. Ish. Maybe it's not full chili peppers. Yeah, right? This work is happening in Arizona, 9 school systems impacting about 10,000 students. Nationally, we've got about 19 school systems that'll be launching these models next year in cooperation with us. The work is picking up. And one of the biggest questions that we often get about scaling this innovative staffing work or making it even better. Some of them, like, I look at Chris Gilmore in the back. Chris, raise your hand so everyone can see the pain. Right, I say, Chris, like, top answer on the board. And one of the things that Chris is likely to say is, oh, it's the Synergy Student Information System that, assumes that every kid is in a box with 25. So what if we invited education technology into a conversation in a different way? That instead of building the default to the market, don't want to ignore the market, right? Ed tech for a one teacher, one classroom model, what if we started to think about all of the incredible work that's happening with our panelists today in this new sort of third horizon of doesn't have to look like business as usual, and how can education technology be part of the catalyst to bring about a wildly different view of schooling? And so with that, I pass the mic. In 1 second, the pain, I forgot about this slide. Where's the technology happening in these models? Well, it's happening at the level of the actual teaching and learning, the instruction. It's happening around the student and educator information systems, synergy, that sort of thing. It's happening in the way that the educators are communicating with one another in new ways. And it's happening in the way that we're networking together, educators either in schools, across school systems, innovators doing this work. And so we've got an incredible panel that are going to react to this. And we're going to meet Dean Carole Basile, who will introduce our panel and then take it away.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Carole Basile. I'm the Dean of the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College at Arizona State University. And we have brought together quite the panel of people to start thinking about, if we were to think about new models of schooling and new models of the ways that we think about our education workforce, how does technology help us to actually transform those systems? As I say, many of us have been here now for, we're on our last legs here, but seeing lots of technology, lots of things that are going on. And the question that I always have is, how is it actually transforming and changing the system, or is it just being built for the system that is? So, Peter, why don't you start and just introduce yourself? We'll just do really, really quick introductions, lightning round introductions, and then we'll kind of get into the meat of this. So.
Thank you. Yeah. I go first after this lovely speech about the challenges. Thanks, Carole. I'm Peter Relan. I run an incubator in the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley. And we incubate anything new and breakthrough. So as an example, we have, I've been in Silicon Valley for 40 years. I'm an engineer, and I love building systems. But we have, how many people here have heard of EPIC? Reading the books in, yeah, okay, quite a few. So we help incubate that. Why? Same idea. We wanted to bring parents into the picture, into reading. We don't want the teacher to be alone trying to help kids read. We know that reading is a fundamental skill that is a gateway in life. So we said, how do we bring parents to the picture? Let's give away EPIC, which is the entire set of children's books. One of the co-founders of YouTube was a founder. All children's reading material, let's bring it into one mobile application, iPad, and we'll just give it away to schools, K through 5 in the US for no charge. However, when the kid goes home and says, I'd like to continue reading, the parent now has to get involved because they have to, register themselves and so on. We could only have registered teachers otherwise use the app. So it brings a new resource, and a really important resource to help the teacher. Now we're incubating something called MathGPT, which is a way to change the textbook, which has probably not been reinvented in a long time, like 500 years maybe, that's a bit long, other than turning it into an ebook, by allowing people to contribute to an AI that surrounds the textbook. So the teacher or well-known personas or material from the internet is all brought in with the teacher's approval and turned into a generative AI chatbot that is actually replacing the textbook, however, following the textbook. So now the teacher can, in class, say, everybody, please open your MathGPTs, work on your math problems. You have a little teacher in every one of your books to help you, and you can flip the classroom, and now all this content and material is suddenly showing up as an interactive chatbot. Yes, it's not a human being, but these days people say it might be sentient.
Thanks. So you're going to start hearing, right, how technology becomes part of the team, and how, that it's not just a tool, that it actually is another opportunity for kids to have a team around them, and that how it begins used as that tool. Andi?
Good morning. I'm Andi Fourlis, Superintendent, Mesa Public Schools, and really I'm so proud to be a part of this work, but mostly I'm proud that my oldest daughter is 28 years old and she chose to be a teacher this year. And we are going to keep the profession alive, but we have to redesign it to keep the profession alive.
Okay, I'm Branstetter. I'm at Carnegie Mellon. We do a lot of work in artificial intelligence, some of it slated for implementation in the classroom. But I guess we still are drawing a pretty significant distinction between human intelligence and machine intelligence, and we're looking for ways to bring these together to support student learning, especially in math. Maybe I could just sketch out a quick scenario, or should I turn it over to...
No, go ahead. Keep going.
All right. So imagine a middle school classroom where students are spending a lot of their time doing a personalized set of problems on AI-driven adaptive software, and these students run into problems. And there are 25 different students running into 25 different problems and only one teacher. But the system has a struggle detector built into it that identifies when a student is having difficulty and can actually infer, based on a lot of interaction with the student, what the struggle might be. And then it goes out into the cloud, and it finds a human tutor who has got experience helping this kind of student with this kind of problem. It provides that human tutor with some information on this student, their learning challenges, and suggests some science-based instructional interventions that have been demonstrated to help this student with this problem. And armed with this knowledge, the tutor pops up on the student's screen, greets the student by name, helps the student work through the problem that they have. So that we're not just allowing teachers to team with other people in the same building or the same classroom, but there's a great cloud of experts out there that can be mobilized to help the student.
Awesome. Rob.
Good morning. My name is Rob Weil. I'm the Director of Policy Research and Field Services for the American Federation of Teachers in Washington, D.C. What brought me to this work is I do a lot of work on the teacher shortage. In fact, we wrote a huge report on that called Here Today, Gone Tomorrow. And also, I've been studying the future of learning for about 5 to 10 years. And that work has brought me here, probably the way to say it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Beghetto. I'm a professor at ASU, and my research and applied work focuses on human creative agency and the possible. And that does include how we might partner with technologies, including advances in AI, to generate new possibilities and to expand our vision of broader possible educational futures, and do so in a principled way.
Thank you. So I'm wondering a little bit, so we've been talking a lot about this intersection, right? Ron, you're kind of alluding to it, but everybody here is, in terms of like, where's the intersection between, right, technology and human creativity? Because we're not taking, this isn't about taking the humans out, this is about building teams of people, not even people. Andi will tell you about dogs. They've got, 80 dogs in the district, so it's not just, it's people, but it's technology, it's all kinds of things, right, that we're trying to build around kids. And so this whole idea that we could stop saying, here's a group of kids, and here's your 25 kids, and your 25 kids, good luck. That we basically are saying, here's a group of kids, let's actually look at what the needs of the kids are. Let's figure out who needs to be on those teams. How do we begin to transform what it is that kids need? And where does technology begin to fit in that? And I'm wondering, Andi, from your perspective, where do you see that happening now? You've got 32 schools that will be moving to team-based models. How are you thinking about where technology plays a role in all that?
So I think we have to start with the question of what do students want most in their learning experience, and what do families want most for their children? And they want a sense of belonging. They want a strong relationship with every teacher that knows their child and cares about them. So it is my responsibility to figure out how are we going to create more time for teachers to build those lasting relationships with children, to understand their passions, their interests, and design instruction that allows for children to flourish. That can no longer happen in a one teacher, one classroom model. So as I think about technology, I think about what are the automated skills that a teacher needs to do that we can free them up from their daily routine of designing for instruction that could be automated by AI, so that they can provide that human touch and human connection to children, because that's what makes a difference. So when we think about teams, as Carole said, we have teams of distributed expertise that surround, whether it's a team of 100 children or 150 children or 30 children. That technology has to support the work of a teacher so that that teacher can get closer and design more personalized experiences. So we have, as Dr. Basile said, we have about 80 therapy dogs in our school district. We're a large school district. We have therapy dogs that are a part of a team because they can sense when a child needs help. They might need a dog can sense when a child needs somebody to care about them and sit next to them. That allows that teacher to continue teaching. So when we talk about team, we think about this in a very large way. We have industry partners that are a part of a team. This is where we're leaning towards technology to say, how can technology join? As we just learned from Carnegie Mellon, how can you go to the cloud and find a plethora of tutors to identify the personalization that teacher needs, or that student needs, but at the same time, that teacher is paying attention to what that child needs, how they respond to digital tutoring. If they don't respond to digital tutoring, then we need to make sure that we're planning for an in-person tutor. So that is the role of what this teacher looks like, and a team of teachers that are working with our children. So lots and lots and lots of application, but most importantly, we have to free teachers up so that they can build and maintain relationships with their children.
Thanks. Rob, I'm wondering, all of this, you're coming from this union perspective at AFT, and we're always mindful that we're not deprofessionalizing the profession. And in fact, I believe that as we think about high tech, high touch, all those kinds of things, that we actually are professionalizing the profession. I'm wondering if you can speak to that a little bit around this.
Well, I know I talk to lots of teachers all the time. That's my job, is to get in the field and talk to teachers. And they feel it's already been deprofessionalized. They feel they're already there. The idea here of working together in teams with colleagues and doing new things, they look at that as professionalizing the profession. That's what, we're actually at a point now where most of our members feel it's already been deprofessionalized, and that they're willing to look at anything to make things better for them and their students. And I see this model as an opportunity. It's not the only model, it's not the only thing, but it's an opportunity to give people back their empowerment. Andi said two things that are very important, and the future of learning runs around three things, and you said two of them. One is relationships, the second is interest or motivations, and the third is actually moving past knowledge, just knowledge, into critical thinking and collaboration and building problem-solving skills. Those are the future. That's the future for students. And if we, as a school, our school and teachers, we have an obligation to do this. Just a couple weeks ago, I spoke on a Zoom with hundreds of teachers about ChatGPT in their room. If you want to get to the ground, work with that. And they are, let me be very clear, they're not against it because they know their students are going to deal with it. That's their future. Teachers are smart enough to know that we have to figure out a way to make it work for those kids. And they're not big fans of banning or any of the stuff you see in some school districts, because they believe it's about learning how to use it to make things better for kids in their future. Yes, they're worried about a lot of these other things, and I don't have time to get into all those. But I want to say one more thing. My daughter's a high school English teacher. If you think I hear about ChatGPT a lot, it's almost every phone call with her. And her position is exactly what I just said. We need to figure out how we use these tools in the classroom, but it can't just be one teacher alone. It's got to be teams working together and managing many tools and many different tools, because not every kid's going to learn the same way at the same time. We all know this. And this kind of flexibility is what will professionalize teaching in schools.
Yeah. Ron, you want to jump in and just talk about how you see all this sort of boosting creativity and problem solving, getting kids to higher level learning, but also getting teachers to higher levels of teaching?
Yeah, thank you. So I think what this panel and I think what this summit pushes us to think about is, what do we owe current and future generations of young people? And as we start thinking about education futures, if we really start thinking about it, GPT is not the future. It's just the start, right? I mean, it's an assistant. When we move to artificial general intelligence, and then in a snap move to artificial superintelligence, we might have some serious issues on our hands. And I'm not here to promote AI FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, nor am I an AI evangelist, but I think we're all somewhere in between. And what these issues bring to us, and I think what team-based models push us to think about, is to move beyond what currently is and to consider what could and should be. And so I think that involves embracing uncertainty. And what we have to do, what John Dewey reminded us over 100 years ago, is when we face real, genuine doubts about the future, is to suspend our conclusions, not try to quickly resolve it, and focus on the existing models of known knowns, and think about how can we teach the way we've always been teaching now that ChatGPT's involved, but also think about unknowns, unknown futures, to embrace that uncertainty. And so I think that's what we need to think about. We don't know where it's going to be headed. And so how do we prepare ourselves and young people to navigate those uncertainties in a principled way? So what principled approach to this work invites us to do is, yes, generate possibilities, generate new scenarios, think beyond the current state. So that's kind of the what if part of principled possibility thinking. But it also has a what if not component. What if we are wrong? And we have to anticipate that as we're generating possibilities. And I think that blend is kind of a beautiful blend, because what it allows us to do is temper down some of our kind of exuberance and zeal for the new and the possible, but it also helps us kind of, calm down some of our anxiety and fear and be confident that working together in teams with new models, and I think the other that's in the room is going to be things like AI. That is going to be an educator, as much as a therapy dog is, as much as humans are. And so how do we cultivate these relationships in a human-centered way and in a principled way? And so I think that kind of gets us to the question of what I think everyone's talking about here. How do we not only prepare ourselves, but what do we owe our students as they're moving into something we just simply cannot predict? There's multiple futures, not just one. So how do we prepare them for the plurality of the unknown?
Thanks. So Lee and Peter, you're the builders on this panel, and I'm wondering about how, as you are building, are you thinking about on the development side, that this isn't just another tool that we're just sticking into a classroom hoping teachers use, that that it really is transformational in terms of the kinds of things that Brent points out. Like we need technology to power not only instruction, but at the same time, we need it to power teams. We need it to power real system structural change. And I'm wondering if you just comment to that. Now, whoever wants to go first.
Thanks, yeah. I want to actually echo what you just said about I'm scared of what's happening with AI, honestly. As we speak, I'm working on a framework for our Congressman Ro Khanna, who is quite visible on the national scene, of regulating AI as much as I'm helping build it. Because as I help build it, I see what might go wrong. And so that's just a point to be noted, that we need to actually bring a little bit of control over the possibility here. Of course, what you said reminded me of the famous calculator, band strikes, right? And now we look at it and say, I was too poor to buy a calculator. That's my personal story, so I just used to do the mental math, but now I use one because I'm too old to do it. And to your point, yeah, exactly. Too poor, by the time you make some money, you need one. To your point, let me share with you as we are building MathGPT. We went to a local school district, talked to a brilliant math teacher we know in middle school. I showed her the MathGPT, which is take ChatGPT and surround it completely, firewall it so that it doesn't spew out nonsense and really teaches. And I said, I want to show you a product that could help you. So first thing, your daughter, for example, we're teaching 3 classes inside this 25-person class. It's not actually 25 people. It's like 10, 8, and 7. The below performing, the at performing, and the above performing. So you're really teaching 3 classes. You need 3 teachers, right? At least. Second, after the demo and everything, I said, I'd love to get your feedback so we can try it in the school. And she said, I'd be happy to do that. And you know what the last thing she said to me? After all of this and showing her the promise of the future, she said, by the way, Peter, can you help me get out of teaching? And my jaw dropped. This is a Stanford-educated math major who is known to be one of the best teachers in our school district, who is just, She says it takes hours every day to prepare for the next day. So we have to professionalize as we build. And as we build, we have to be compassionate. We have to take this technology and make sure we regulate it. And finally, I would say to Lee, I really want to work with you on this cloud on-demand tutor, because AI will not always solve the problem. Whether it's a therapy dog or you will need, it's called human in the loop. We need it. In fact, there's a good team of people there who are working on this on-demand, 15 seconds, get a cloud tutor. So much as I run an incubator, I just want to say, the human angle is enormous here, and we can't, it has to be paired with technology.
And if I could build on what Peter just said, I guess two kind of mantras that guide our efforts at Carnegie Mellon are first, we're building the airplane while we're flying it, but we're co-building the airplane with practicing educators. We're deploying these technologies at an early stage in real classrooms, and we're getting the feedback from the teachers, from the entire support system in those schools on how it's doing, and we learn what works and what doesn't work. The other mantra is really centering and leveraging the power of human relationships, which we think is absolutely key. We've learned a lot from Saga Education, who say kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right? I mean, the AI that we designed doesn't know when the kid is texting their friends under the table. Right? But a human being is able to pick up on that, and a human being is able to encourage and inspire and also hold students accountable for what they're capable of doing in ways that no algorithms we've been able to build can. Right? So what we're trying to do with our technology is actually create a rich menu of alternative modalities of AI-supported human AI paired instruction, but where we're really leveraging that human relationship. And that can be in what Kincaid calls level 3 tutoring, where you've got one tutor working with a small number of students on a regular basis in a pre-scheduled way for a semester or an academic year. That can be very effective, but it's obviously hard to scale, it's expensive. Or we can do the kind of level 2 that I just described, where the learning system identifies that a student needs help in the moment and pairs that student with the best available human tutor who can try and help support that student in the moment. And eventually, of course, we hope that many students will move to the point where they're confident enough learners that they can find resources for themselves on the internet or from established providers, right? From Upchief, Schoolhouse, what Peter's doing. But if we have this rich menu, then we can meet students where they are, and as their needs change, we can move with them. And in every case, we're bringing more human beings into the loop, not fewer. That seems to be the key.
Does anybody have any thoughts on this next level, right? So there's the instructional part, there's what's happening in the classroom, there's this, team of teachers, how technology then can support and begin to support people working together, building relationships with kids. And then the sort of next level about, the systems piece. I mean, we run into things all the time where everything, student information systems, right, that are built for one teacher, one classroom models, and, seat time and all of those kinds of things. And I'm wondering whether or not any of you are thinking about systems from that perspective too, right? Just above that classroom level as well. Peter, go ahead.
So I don't think we give Carole enough credit. We were brainstorming one day, and this idea of a cloud-based tutor, which we do and Dee is working on, we have an incubator company called Got It Education that does that. And Carole had the most brilliant idea. She said, I love what you're doing, but your on-demand cloud of tutors should be an on-demand cloud of teachers. Why is it that this cloud, when a teacher is struggling with a kid who may not be getting something and they're new, as we know, a lot of new teachers being brought in these days, and they don't know how to deal with the situation. That team becomes a cloud team of real human beings. So technology is simply the connector, but the actual helper. So if you want 4 teachers in that classroom coming in and out to help the main teacher there, you can do it today with tech. You just have to think differently. And when you said, what is that next level? I just want to mention, this was Carole's idea. Haven't implemented yet, but I'd love to get your reaction.
That's the teacher educator in me that I'd like to change.
Exactly.
I'd like to change all the teacher preparation too.
And it blew my mind.
That's a session for next year. Go ahead. Go ahead, Andi.
As we're thinking about Mesa Public Schools, if we want a different experience for students, we have to blow up and redesign the systems we currently have. So the example we continue to talk about is that our systems are built for a one teacher, one classroom model. So that means your student information system, you have a roster of students, and that's assigned to one teacher. We evaluate, teacher evaluation is regulated across states of America. We evaluate one teacher and that one teacher's impact on this assigned group of children. We also think about how we organize is based on how we can measure. So the Carnegie unit of organizing how we give feedback to students about learning is based on time and a very, very rigid set of grades. So we have to redesign what that looks like. So we're building competencies. What are the competencies that we want our students to know and be able to do and perform in terms of content? And it's not necessarily by grade level. That's another construct that we have that is limited by technology currently, which is you have a third grade classroom assigned to third grade. What about multi-age classrooms? What about 3 grade levels in the same classroom? Because we are working with students about where they are and moving them forward. We have kids that are working ahead. We have kids that are working behind. The other is, how do you measure creativity? How do you measure problem solving? How do you communicate what that looks like? So what would a permanent student record look like that they build throughout their educational career and takes them into the world of work so they can tell the story of what they've learned, how they've learned, and what they've accomplished, what their goals are, where they are continuing to grow day after day after day? What if that same system happened for teachers to identify what are my areas of professional learning? Where's the growth that I am committed to? How am I evolving as an educator? And this is who I am becoming versus a standardized system that says, here is a rubric of one of 4 domains, and this is where I am this year. And there's maybe 1 or 2 words that depends on whether I'm highly effective or effective. That is an antiquated system. It doesn't work any longer. We've got to get rid of it, and we have to redesign that. And that's why I'm so grateful that we have these partners that are saying we're willing to work on this work, and let's bend, break, and destroy the systems that are getting in the way of our kids progressing in the ways that they need to. And I know that there's a lot of research on the teacher shortage, and we can admire the problem of the teacher shortage again and again and again, and we can tell the story. We still have a teacher shortage. We have a teacher shortage. I would argue we have a working conditions problem. Teachers are not leaving the profession, they're leaving the working conditions. It's incumbent upon all of us up here to lead the charge and tell the story that until we change working conditions, we will never change the shortage of those choosing to be teachers.
Go ahead, Rob.
Wow.
Oh, go ahead, clap, please.
I was going to mention the informational systems and the other. If you're not familiar with the job of teaching, it's the most regulated profession in America. They follow laws all the way from the local city, all the way through the federal government and every other thing. And I give you credit because I visited Westwood High School, and I saw the room for innovation that was given that doesn't happen in 95% of American schools. It's more about compliance than innovation. And until we break that mold, until we do it, we will have problems with teacher shortage. My boss, Randy Weingarten, likes to say, we don't have a teacher shortage problem. We have a respect problem of the teaching profession. And we need to change these things, but as long as we keep on doing the things that you talked about, which are embedded in state law, which is embedded in federal law, it is very difficult to change. And that's why I'm hoping these kind of things can just start and push against that. Another one I wanted to talk about, and you kind of alluded to it, was the assessment systems in our country. The future is not standardized testing. The future is talking and using the different assessments that are built into the system itself, and to adapt and individualize and personalize learning. That's the only assessment you need for kids to learn. And we need to move forward in this country. And it's very difficult to do because there's many people who control what goes on in schools have no idea what goes on in schools, and that's a tremendous problem. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. I don't want to come in here and talk about, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. We did the shortage report, and where was, by the way, guys, the shortage report, nothing on there was like shocking. It's things that never have been addressed in this country, ever. And we need to address them, and we're working hard to do that. But one thing we need to do is we need to look at models where we break through and give room for an innovation and celebrate that. Celebrate that. And that's why when I went and visited this stuff and I looked at the new workforce, I'm saying, is there something here we can use? And I believe if we keep on moving forward, there is something here, because we do have to break through. We have to break the mold we're in right now. And I think this is the perfect time to do it with all the other things happening around. I think.
And there are technology solutions, right, to doing that. That's what we need right now. There's a big R&D effort that we just have to be thinking about here. Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think something that the team-based approach, this kind of innovative approach, allows for is it really does allow for the democratization of creative educational experiences for teachers and students. And how is that, and what does that look like? The beautiful thing about creativity and innovation is you don't need a standard or a predetermined criterion. It meets what's called the interocular traumatic test. It hits you right between the eyes. You know when a kid restores a broken down bus stop as part of a project that they initiated. And it's a beautiful thing. You don't have to get out pencils and start measuring, what competencies were at play here. You can see it. You can see it in innovations like GPT. It blows you away if you play with GPT-4, for example. You see there's something here. So what is required then? I think some of the technologies are already here, but what we need is a new logic. And I think the team-based approach challenges the logic of education, which is we have kind of made this Faustian pedagogical bargain with the future, if you will. We don't know what the future is, so we're going to focus on the likely future. And how are we going to do that? We're going to teach kids known knowns, predetermined problems with predetermined solutions, and that's how we're going to assess them. Did they meet the expectation in expected ways? Then great. That's fine. Kids need to know how to do that. And we need to also create space for them to engage with uncertainty in productive ways, to identify their own problems to solve, their own ways to solve them, to use these clouds, these resources to rethink what it means to be an educator, and to actually do something that can not only benefit their learning life, but have a legacy to benefit the learning lives and with others. That can only be done in a team-based approach where you have multiple educators, human and non-human, working in the service of students' interests so that they can become the creative agents and authors of their own lives.
Not about apps anymore. Brent, you started us. I'm going to give you the last word here.
Thank you.
2 minutes and 25.
Each of you. And thanks to all the people that showed up today. We'll be around to talk for a minute, a few of us at least, after this. But more than anything else, I think that this is about building a movement. When we're thinking about educational technology, I think that it's about shortening the distance between where educational technology is being developed, we heard some of this today, and the classrooms in which it's implemented, right? I think that this is incredibly important. And I think that we all own a piece of this idea of asking the hard questions, right? Which is that, are we designing for the current systems which are wrought with all sorts of inequity? And in many ways, we're reproducing those same systems. Or are we going to challenge ourselves to actually design, maybe not even for the known future, but if it's like it's living into this unknown, and it's lonesome work sometimes. Whether you're an ed tech developer or whether you're a faculty member at a college of education or you're working in a school. And so I would just implore all of us in the spirit of coming together in conference to meet and bandy together and try to advance an agenda that produces outcomes that look wildly different from what we see today. And so with that, I hope that you enjoy the waning hours of our time together here at ASU GSV. Thank you for your continued advocacy on behalf of kids and communities and educators. Have a lovely Wednesday.
Thank you all. Thank you all.